I have used. The critically acclaimed autobiographical novel, Painting the Invisible Man, and Sweet Bitter Love, and articles for the Huffington Post, AOL Healthy Living, the Worcester Business Journal, and guest blogger for Psychology Today. And also a wonderful singer, owned the best restaurant ever in Sturbridge called the Casual Cafe, which she now doesn't own anymore, and one of my best friends, Rita Sciano.
Well, thank you, Karen, for that very lengthy introduction. The best part was at the end, because you are a dear friend and we've known each other for a long time. I was very pleased when Karen called and asked me if I would speak to you all about stress, because it's a topic I really love to talk about. I know that sounds kind of strange, but it's important that we understand what stress is. Now, I want to give just a little sad note to you, Mary Knight. There is no such thing as a stress-free life, okay? So there's nothing I'm going to tell you today that's going to make you never have stress in your life again. However, my goal is to not only give you an understanding of how stress works on us and how it enters us in our lives, and then, of course, I'm going to give you my top 10 holiday tips for dealing with stress towards the end. So that being said, we know that the holiday season, adding into the regular stress of our life really can bring all our levels up. And so I always like to begin a talk just giving you a quick look at what stress is and how it interacts with us physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So bear with me, you're going to get a quick physiology lesson here, all right? So to begin, it's important to understand what the actual definition of stress is, because we all can say, oh, I'm so stressed, this thing makes me stressed, that thing makes me stressed, but we don't really understand what stress is. We know it, we think when we have it, but we might be actually confusing it with something else. So when we're talking about what stress is in actuality, stress is the body's reaction to a mentally or emotionally disruptive or upsetting condition. It's the body's reaction to adverse external influences that are capable of affecting our physical health. Now, those words, adverse external influence, really is the operative part of understanding the definition of stress. Because we tend to think of stress as being something internal, but it really isn't. Anxiety is internal. Anxiety is that emotional reaction. Stress is the body's physical reaction to things happening out here in our life. So very quick, we have, and I'm sure you've all heard of the fight or flight response. The fight or flight response resides in the amygdala, which is one of the oldest parts of the development of the human brain. And its whole basis was a primordial response to safeguard any threat to our survival, fleeing potential threatening situations, which, way back in time were things like, the lions and the tigers and the bears and things we either had to fight or flee from. However, as we evolved as human beings, we developed a more modern response within this evolution. And now this fight or flight response will trigger when there is a perceived threat. Perceived threats being, the stack of bills that are coming up on our desk. Perceived threats will be what a lot of us might be facing during the holidays, and I'll talk about this one later. Family, the bills that come in, the myriad things we have to juggle at this time of the year. And it is these perceived threats in our life that actually cause us more physical harm than the other ones, than the primordial ones. Because when we have an actual physical threat to us, let me give you an example. Imagine you're in your car, okay, and all of a sudden you're driving down the road and somebody cuts in front of you. that fight or flight response automatically triggers. It's an autonomic nerve, part of our autonomic nervous system. And what it does is it throws our body out of what we call homeostasis. So folks, think of it this way. Think of a set of scales. When we're in homeostasis, our body is in balance. When that fight or flight response triggers and the sympathetic system takes over, we very quickly go out of balance like this. And what happens to us, the body immediately goes under stress. Our blood pressure goes up, our heart rate, our respiration rates go up, our pupils dilate, our muscles tense, our saliva ceases, our digestion ceases. All of these things happen in an instant. We have no control over that. They happen in an instant as the amygdala sends a message through the hypothalamus down to the adrenal glands to secrete adrenaline. Adrenaline is what we call a positive stress hormone. It is that adrenaline that in that split second helps us to turn the car or slam on the brakes or do what we need to do to safeguard our physical survival. And as soon as that danger is over, the parasympathetic system takes over because this is a reciprocal system. So that one takes over. Suddenly our blood pressure goes down, our heart rate slows down, our digestion starts, we produce saliva, and the body is back in balance. That, my friends, is how it works to our benefit, because we're always going to have a stress in our life because it's adverse external influences that threaten us. However, those internal ones that I mentioned, things like loss of job, needing money, dealing with illnesses of family, illnesses with ourselves, all of these other external things in our life that cause us to feel stress. And what we're feeling is that body out of balance. Only this time, what happens is the adrenaline kicks in, but it's not enough because it's not immediate. So now the hypothalamus sends the message and we start secreting something called cortisol, which is another stress hormone. And it's actually the one that's the most harmful to us because it doesn't metabolize in the body as quickly or as thoroughly as adrenaline is done. When adrenaline kicks in, it's there and then it processes. Cortisol stays with us a lot longer. So when we are under situations that put us in this constant state of imbalance, our body continues to secrete, like a little squirt gun, little bits of cortisol into our bloodstream. And what happens as this builds up, this is why we say stress is related to all leading causes of death. It is not the cause of death, but related to. It's related to heart disease. It's related to autoimmune diseases. There are so many things because this cortisol breaks down our immune system, this process, this increasing amount of cortisol in our system. So I want you to understand all of this because when we start to pay attention and recognize to the signals our body sends us, because we don't usually think about, we know we feel stress when it's been there for a while, but when we can start to recognize our body's signal to us, we can then much more quickly and much more readily start to take some steps to help our body get us back into homeostasis, into balance as possible. If things are ongoing, we may not get us wholly there, but if we can lessen that gap, and start to reduce the amount of cortisol, we will be happier in the long run. And some of the ways we do this, one of the simplest ways to do this, who knows? Chris, not you, because you know this stuff, and I know you do. Chris Hugh Huff. But who knows? What is one of the simplest things we can do to start minimizing our stress? Mary. You're muted. Mary Knight, you're muted.
Control our breathing.
Absolutely. It is the simplest thing. There have been studies, I think it was University of California, Davis, that did a study that showed the very act of doing 10 mindful breaths will start to lower the heart rate, lower the blood pressure. And all a mindful breath is just trying to just take in a deep breath and let it out and just focus on that breath. And sometimes we say, just think of the number of the breath. 1, release. 2, release. Why don't you all give it a try right now? Taking a mindful breath. 1, release. 2, release. Now, if you're in a meeting, you're in a situation, you're in a disagreement with somebody, you're in the middle of, crazy shoppers in the store this time of year, nobody is going to know you're breathing. Nobody's going to know you are doing these mindful breaths. But if you can get into the habit of doing this every day, 3, 4, 5 times a day, a minimum of 10 breaths, you will start to help your body process that cortisol. Okay. It's one of the simplest things we can do. Exercise is another one. There are so many things. As the holiday season approaches now, our stress levels are going to soar even more. Anybody feeling that already? You are, Deborah? Yeah. I'm sure many people are. But I want you to remember something. The greatest weapon that you have against stress is your ability to choose one thought over another. Because the more we allow ourselves to perseverate about things, especially things that aren't even happening yet, in the holidays, as you will see in my top 10, there's many of that in that list. The more we do that, we are letting those thoughts become part of that perceived threat in our life. And we're forcing ourselves out of balance. And so getting the body in balance, recognizing that in you. And I'll let you take a moment to think about this. When you are under stress, what is it that you notice your body does? And if you're not sure, think about language that you use. For example, my mother really suffered from hypertension. And her best words is, my blood is boiling. My blood is boiling. Another student cancels a lesson today. My blood is boiling. And yeah, her blood is boiling. Those words were the perfect metaphor for what was going on in her body because her blood pressure was up. With me, I'll talk about my heart beating out of my chest. So think about it. You talk about feeling like your head is in a vice, or you got pains in your neck, or pains in your rear end in your life. Let those words be your guide, because that's telling you this is what's happening in my body. And we're so used to it. We're so used to feeling stress that we have become, in many ways, just immune to understanding what is going on. We don't recognize it anymore. So I really urge all of you to kind of listen to your language and to think about what it is that's going on in your body when you feel stress. Anybody know it right now and want to offer it? If you do, you could just unmute yourself. All right, well, y'all can think about it. Now, before I move on, because I want to be cognizant of my time with you, to my top 10 holiday stress tips. Any questions on what I've talked about and what I have explained very quickly to you all today? Because I know we have a short amount of time. Anybody have a question on that?
No, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
Oh, yeah, it does. And go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody saying something. It does. And it's the thing that we so have to learn to recognize, because, some people love to be stressed. It's like they wear it as a badge of honor. I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. Look at me. I'm so stressed. Yeah, well, you're killing yourself. Because as I said, we know that stress is related to so many leading causes of death. Do you know that one of the reasons esophageal cancer is on the rise is because of the amount of stress most people are under? Why esophageal cancer? Because if you remember when I said, when that sympathetic system takes over, our ability to produce saliva decreases. If we don't have saliva, we're not breaking down the acids in the food we eat. A lot of people, when they're under stress, either eat too much, I happen to be one of those, or they don't eat enough. You don't eat at all, you're building more acid in your system. You've got no saliva to break that down. You're overeating. You don't have the saliva or the digestion working properly to break those foods down. So that's why there is such a correlation between cancers, heart disease, and stress. Okay, so any questions? And then if not, I'm going to move on.
No.
All right, well, I'll take questions at the end. So let me just take a moment to share my screen here. And here we are. 'Tis the season to be stressed out. So number 10, too much to do, too little time. Some of you feeling that one? And that's what tends to happen to us this time of year. All of a sudden, we put all that pressure on ourselves. But the key here really is to just plan ahead. You know, you have to make that time to just sit down. And if you haven't done it yet, I hope you'll do it tonight. To just sit down, write a list of what needs to be done, who's on the guest list, do you have holiday travel plans, and the like. And then start prioritizing the list, starting with what I call the must-dos. Must-dos are those things that have time constraints to them. They can't be put off. And then the need to do part of the list are those things that have that little bit of, wiggle room for completion. And then always be sure to follow that action plan. Okay? So plan ahead. Number 9, shopping. Oh, God. Once we have planned out who we are buying gifts for, all right, then think about it. What is it that that person really would enjoy? If we take the time to think about these things and write down certain options next to their name, it will make it a little easier when we're shopping. Buy local if you don't want to travel out to a mall. Online, of course, gives us so many, many options. Crowded stores are making a lot of people nervous right now, especially, with, they're talking about this tri-pandemic thing going on. We've got COVID, we've got RSV, we've got the flu, and being around a lot of people might still be making some of us a little bit nervous. But the difference is there's a difference between fear in us, which is going to release cortisol, or just being cautious. So if you're going to be out in the shopping centers and around a lot of people, think about it. What can you do to take some sort of caution? Put a mask back on if you're comfortable doing that. Try to shop at the times when maybe it won't be so crowded. So those are just some quick little things to think about with the shopping. Overspending is another one of those things, because what's going to happen in terms of those, like I said, the modern day response of the perceived threats and the finances when those bills start to come in. So set a budget. Set a budget and stick to it. That's the best thing that you can do. And I'm a big believer in carrying cash, and I find that if I go shopping with cash, that's what I spend. Debit cards can get us into a lot of danger. Credit cards are fine as long as you got the money there. And if you haven't set yourself up some sort of a Christmas budget plan for this year, think about doing one of those for next year. It's one of the easiest things that we can do, is to kind of take a look at, this is what I've been spending every year on Christmas. This is what I know I can afford. And how can I break that down over the 12 months? Either some money every month in a savings account that's earmarked specifically for holiday shopping. It will make things a lot easier. So many parties, so little time. That's the other thing that happens. We got the office party, the chamber party, the neighbor's party. Got to visit grandma, got to visit my parents, got to school, pageant, kids, grandkids, holiday drinks with the staff, got to visit the in-laws, got to celebrate with friends. And then some of our friends have the audacity to have a birthday this time of month. So these are the things that can make us feel incredibly overwhelmed. So you can ask yourself, what really is important and what do I need to get done by Christmas? What can be done beforehand? You know, can I say to some of those friends, you know, why don't we plan to celebrate the holidays in January when it's all done? Or even better, in February when there's really nothing to do when we're in the middle of winter. Let's plan then to get together and have that little holiday meal. If we really think about these things, we don't have to try to jam so much into our lives and into our schedules. Set the priority. What's the most important? Who are you going to see when? Overindulging, the other thing that causes a lot of stress because, we talk about the holiday 10. I think it's okay to enjoy the holiday season and some of the foods that come with the holidays that we don't have at any other time of year, but do everything in moderation. That's always the key in everything, moderation. And if you find you got a big party you're going to go to and you know that the food is going to be lavish, then think about it. What am I going to eat the day before? What can I plan on a diet plan that puts me back into moderation the day before and the day after? A lot of that is just thinking, because when we overindulge a lot of food or alcohol into our system and we are stressed, you know what happens? Remember what I said. Part of that sympathetic system is our digestion has slowed down. Our saliva production has ceased. So all of these things is what make us feel sick at this time of year. Traveling, also the big one, and this is the thing we have to remember. There is more in our life that is out of our control than is within our control. And when we recognize those things, that's how we do that. What I said, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. There always can be problems with traveling. Weather delays, just delays in scheduling. So plan for it, especially if you're traveling with kids. How are you going to keep them busy? How are you going to keep yourself busy? Avoid the, oh, ain't it awful commiseration that people have with one another. You don't need that when everybody, don't get yourself involved with the complaining with this person and that person. Some people need to feel that level of commiseration. When you buy into that, then all you're doing is throwing your body out of balance and raising your stress level. Number 4, just what I always wanted. Unwanted Christmas gift. I think this one's a bit tough because, and there's differing points of views on it. We once gave a soon-to-be member of our family what we thought was a thoughtful gift, and it was met with, "Oh, I would never use anything like that. Thanks." Leave it, we'll use it. So you have to think, do I want to be upfront and honest and say, I would never wear that? Or do we just want to find some level of graciousness? Or, figure out the best way to handle it. But there are going to be things that we're going to get that we maybe don't want or don't like. But I always think when we can just be gracious about it, it's always the best thing. No one's feelings then are hurt. La familia. There's nothing like the family at Christmas time. Most families have that person or people, one drink too many, and then the arguments start and they don't get along. You know, I remember years ago, my two uncles would start, you know, they always had Italian family. You always got to have the card game on Christmas night. And then my two uncles would start drinking too much. And the next thing you know, there was a big argument. The cards would fly up into the air. Look, we all know who we get along with, who we don't get along with, who could be a problem. Prepare for that. Just remind yourself, look, I'm not going to let so-and-so get me aggravated. So either plan a conversation, plan a way to keep yourself away from that person as much as possible, but don't get caught up into it. Every family has family drama, not just the Sopranos. Every family has family drama. We all know who these folks are. And a lot of times they're people we love very much in our lives, but their stress level starts to affect us and we start to feel our stress level come up. So when you're getting together with the family, think about who is it? Who is it that could be the problem? Anything that I can do to alleviate it, you know, less alcohol, whatever you can do to make it a little easier. And I always think too that when we have that certain person in our life who can sometimes be an annoyance in a party situation, I think it's always best, I find, to remind myself, what is it about that person I really like? Or what is it about that person I really love? And this is their issue, and this is what they do. I don't have any control over it. I don't have any control over their behavior. But what I do have is I can control what my response, not my reaction. That's the big difference, folks. Reacting is emotional. Response takes thought. What will be my response to this? How will I handle this? Politics. Have a rule. No politics, unless you're a family who loves to discuss politics. And there are those people out there, and some of us love to have these discussions, and we try to have them with mutual respect. But it's always best, if you know it's going to be an argument, just say to everybody, look, we got a ground rule here. We're not going to discuss politics. We're not going to have that conversation at our party today. You want to get together and have a cup of coffee with me, and we can talk about how we see things and what our differences are, what we agree with. That would be great, but not at the party. And you know what? You have a right to ask that. You have a right to ask that of people. To just say, this topic's, you know, off limits. And then lastly, loss. This is a big one.
Had a gun and one rifle in his hands, another one out of his backpack. Looked like a bulletproof vest on. He was
I don't know what that is. It's not coming from my end.
Higher ground.
So what you kind of set the scene. What were you doing as this started to happen?
I was standing in the middle of the
Hello.
Gary, you and Albertson.
I don't know where that's coming from.
You're just putting guns down, so I took off.
If you aren't muted, please mute yourself.
What did you think when you see this guy? I mean,
Mary, it's Pam Albertson.
Okay. So let's talk about loss. You know, whether you've lost a family member, a beloved pet, a dear friend, this time of season is very hard when we're going through loss. And we have to do our best to find a way to honor their memory during the holiday seasons, and to be prepared that we're going to feel that level of emptiness. But again, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but our ability to choose one thought over another, our ability to say to ourselves, I'm going to feel my grief. I'm going to allow myself to miss them. I'm going to honor their memory as best as I can by filling it with joyful memories that will start to bring down the sadness. That's the thing. We can't ignore the fact that some people are no longer with us. I think it's always good to acknowledge it. You know, I got married last year, and we had a little table set up at our wedding. It had a chair, an empty chair, and it had a table next to it that had pictures of loved ones in our family who were no longer with us. And it was our way to honor their memory. So maybe if there's someone that's very close, you can just, have a little vase of flowers and their picture there, where people can just, stop and share a private thought, have a private thought or share a memory with you. So those are, I think, the top things. I think I'm just good on time with you all. Those are the top things that I think get in our way over the holidays. But as I started out by saying, understanding how stress operates in your body is the most important thing. Those top 10 things that I mentioned are all things we can control by our ability to respond to them when they are situations that are not within our control, like the travel example, okay, losing people, all of those different things. So take a look think about what is coming up in your plan for the holidays this season. And sometimes I think it's good too to kind of like think back again. When I think back to last, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is, Kwanzaa, whatever holiday it is you celebrate, New Year's, what was it that I didn't feel went right? And what was it that just brought me a level of distress or unease or stress that I think about it now and I go, oh God, not this again. Take that time to think about it and think about what can you change in your response to that situation should it occur again. Because the more prepared we are, the more we are aware and prepared, the better off we're going to be. Because I'll say it again, Mary, I'm sorry, there is no such thing as a stress-free life, but there is a way to manage the stress in our life. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Oh, really, really good tips, Rita.
Hey, I just thought of 3 more things. I'm sorry, I should have 3 more things to keep in mind. I've told you to pay attention to your body's responses, but I think a good thing to do, 3 things that I think are very good to do is, I think it's really important to read something every day that inspires us and read something every day that makes us laugh. Just to try to do those things, find a way to feel inspired and to find something that's funny. And learning to laugh at something you did is the best thing, learning to laugh at ourselves and not taking ourselves so down seriously. And then another great practice is the practice of gratitude. This is another numerous studies that have showed people who practice gratitude on a regular basis do lower their stress rates. And you can do that in so many different ways. Just taking my personal way is at the end of my day, every day when I'm getting ready to go to bed or when I'm first in bed, I think about 3 things that I'm grateful for. And certainly you all will be one of them tonight. I just want you to know that because I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share what I know about managing stress. And sometimes it's the other things. I'm very grateful that the oil company got down to my driveway today and put the oil in my house. I'm grateful that I can turn on my shower and have hot water. There's so many things that go on in our life that we have to feel gratitude for, as well as the very big things in our life. So read something funny every day, read something inspiring, practice gratitude, learn to laugh at yourself, and count your blessings because we all have tons of them. Now I promise I'll shut up and take questions.
We're wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Tinkerbell agrees.
Now, she's our Christmas gift.
Yes.
Right in front of us. We don't even have to unwrap it. Thank you again.
My pleasure. I'm learning Italian. Piacere.
So nice. Oh.
Well, have a great rest of your meeting and blessed holidays to you all. You're a great organization. You do a lot of really good work, and you're a blessing to the community that you serve. So thank you.
Come back anytime, Rita, please.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Rita. We enjoyed